Yeah, good afternoon, members. Once again, we've met as ATAG members and teachers of our great nation. Today, we have in our midst, during the presentation, a very colleague of mine at the University of Education, Winneba. He's a lecturer by name Stephen Kwache Apao at the Department of Educational Foundation. He's going to take us through the webinar series for today. So without wasting much time, I'll give the podium to him for him to continue. Mr. Stephen, you are welcome, Mr. Paul. You are welcome.
Thank you very much, Honorable Secretary, and thank you very much for having me this afternoon. This afternoon, we've gathered here as colleagues to share ideas, to Jojo, and to share knowledge about teaching and learning. Originally, I was tasked to present on teaching and learning. Theories of learning, but I feel that we can only talk about the theories of learning when we understand the principles of teaching, because it is these principles and the theories that comes together to bring about learning in the classroom. And you agree with me that without teaching, learning cannot function well in the classroom for that matter. And so this afternoon, I've taken it upon myself to share with you the principles of teaching, which we will look at in the cursory mode, and then we will further proceed to look at the theories that underpins learning in the classroom. And so without wasting much time, we are saying this afternoon that as far as teaching is concerned, it is a system of actions intended to induce change. So whatever a scheme of learning is just the activities that teachers and students would have to do within a couple of weeks or a couple of months or within a particular academic year. And as a teacher, you have to be resourceful. There are times that we say that GES, NACA, these people should supply resources and all that. The thing is that teachers would have to prepare for their classroom adventure. The same way that we get to the mechanic shops and we see that the mechanic is not waiting for the government to buy equipment for him, teachers are also expected to use part of their salaries to prepare for their classroom activities. And so the principle of individual differences will come in. As a teacher, you have to know that the students that you have in your classroom, they are not the same. And that is why the way they will respond to a particular stimuli, if you want to motivate each student in the classroom, there are times that teachers get to the classroom with biscuits, that if a student answers a question right, I'm going to give this student biscuits. We often realize that some of the students will not even raise their hands, and they will not raise their hand because the environment that they find themselves, together with the stimuli that is being supplied to them, is not appealing, especially when the student comes from a well-to-do home where biscuit means nothing. If the teacher tries to motivate the students through the use of biscuits and so on and so forth, it may not work. The same way that if a student is coming from a poor home, if you try to say, let's clap for him in every turn that the student answers a question, the student will not find it interesting to answer any question in the classroom because he doesn't find motivation in whatever the teacher is doing. And so it goes on the principle of review and so on and so forth. Having said that, having spoken extensively about what teaching is and then the principle of teaching, we are saying that teaching is, in the classroom, teaching is essential, but the most essential thing in the classroom is learning. Because as a teacher, when you step in the classroom and students do not find whatever you are teaching meaningful, learning will not occur. And if learning does not occur, it means that the whole teaching and learning process has failed. The whole essence of teaching in the classroom, we have to get it, is that we want to change a behavior. But that behavior can only be changed when learning occurs. And because particularly today we are dealing with the theories of learning, it is prudent that we take a cursory look at what learning is. As far as learning is concerned, it's one of those psychological constructs, sociological constructs, or those terminologies that defies a precise definition. And so universally, people try to define learning to suit their context. In other words, learning is always defined by theorists, researchers, and practitioners based on their environment. And so wherever they are coming from would impact how they are going to define learning. And so learning, we can at best describe it as an enduring change in behavior, an enduring change in behavior, or in the capacity to behave in a given fashion, which results from practice or other forms of experience. We are saying that learning can only occur when people have gone through a particular activity that results in a change in behavior, or when people behave in a way that society expects them to behave as a result of their engagement in some activities, either in practice or from their experience. And so from this definition that we just described, we are saying that learning involves change. And so if you want to see that students have appreciated whatever it is that you've taught them, then it has to manifest in their behaviors in the classroom. And learning endures over time. When we learn something, it has to stay with us for some time, unless probably the theory of forgetfulness is applied here, where we say that you learn something and you easily forget. And as we go through the theories of learning, you will come to appreciate the fact that learning is not only when you are sitting behind your desk with a book in front of you, and that when you try to assimilate information, it can be stored in the short-term memory or the long-term memory. And so we are talking about learning where information is kept in the long-term memory, that it will endure for a long time. And we have to also know that learning occurs through experience. And so learning is only when a student has a book in front of him or in front of him, but there are other forms of experiences that learning takes place in. I have always had a problem when teachers impose knowledge on learning. We are saying that it's a task to perform. If you want them to define marriage, for example, and the student comes from a home where he or she stays with a parent, the child is going to define marriage based on his or her own experience. You don't need to tell the learner that marriage is a union between a man and a woman who have stayed together as husband and wife, and so on and so forth. And that is what we are talking about, that learning occurs through experience, and that experience comes from varied means. And so as teachers in the classroom, we should not restrict students to the textbook knowledge that we have, because the learners have at their disposal various fora and so on from which they can obtain knowledge. Now, theories of learning. And so we come to what a theory is. A theory is a scientifically accepted set of principles offered to explain a phenomenon. Phenomenon occur. And so when teaching, for example, is a phenomenon, learning is a phenomenon. How you may want to explain learning is based on a tested principle scientifically, and that is what theory is. And so we are going to go through various theories. And what we mean by theories, they are just principles that people have offered to explain how learning occurs. And so these theories will provide us with frameworks for interpreting environmental observations, and they serve as bridges between research and education. When people conduct research, they come out with theories. That is the scientific element of it. And these findings from research are always used to bridge or they are used to explain various phenomena that occur among people. When we want to talk about learning, there are critical issues that we have to get at the foreground before we even start. The theories that we are going to talk about, they would come in various forms, but the underlying principle is that they are trying to help us understand how learning occurs. They will help us to understand the role of memory. They will help us to understand the role of motivation. They will help us to understand how we even have to transfer learning, which processes are involved in regulation, and finally, what are the implications for instruction. Because as a teacher, the learning theory that you align with would inform how you teach in the classroom. And so when we step in the classroom, we don't just teach. You get to a classroom and a teacher is actively engaging the learners in a physical activity. It is because the teacher belongs to a particular school of thought or a particular learning theory. You get to a classroom, a teacher is there, and the students are just behind their desks, just watching the teacher. It is because the teacher belongs to a particular school of thought. And so we will go through 3 categories of these theories, and then we will talk about them as we go on. We have 3 basic theories of learning. We have behaviorism, we have cognitivism, and we have constructivism. We are saying this afternoon that as far as learning is concerned, broadly, the theories of learning are classified under behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. The behaviorist school of thought maintains that new behaviors or changes in behaviors are acquired through associations between stimuli and a response. So to these people, there is always a connection between a stimuli and a response. Then the cognitivist theory also maintains that learning occurs through internal processing of information. Learning occurs through internal processing of information. I'm not going into detail of this because the rest of the presentations have been grouped based on these theories. And then the constructivist theory also maintains that we construct our own knowledge. Knowledge is constructed based on individual experiences. And so here, if you belong to any of these school of thought, it will affect how you teach, how you even give students exercises, how you motivate students, how you even set your own questions, and so on and so forth. The first theory that we want to talk about is instrumental conditioning. The first theory that we want to talk about is instrumental conditioning. And here, this instrumental conditioning comes from the behaviorist or the behaviorism or the behaviorist theories. And we have said that they maintain that learning occurs when there is a relationship or when there is a connection between a stimuli and a response. The first one, as I said, that we want to talk about is from E.L. Thorndike. E.L. Thorndike. And when we watch carefully the picture that we have here, he used the cat and the box experience to explain how learning occurs in the classroom. And so he placed a cat in a box and laid a string connecting the door and the box. So the way that we open our rooms and then it behaves, those of us with trap doors. So there is a trap and there is a particular link that pulls more or less like a string that opens it. And then he has placed in this box an object that the animal would have to manipulate in order for the trap door to open. And at the back of the box, there is a foot. What this means is that the animal would have to manipulate the object inside the box in order for the trap door to open so that the animal can come out to pick the food that is there. Now, the first time that he placed the animal in the box, it took the animal a very long time for the animal to operate or manipulate the object before he could come out of the box. After the animal or the cat has been able to open the trapdoor, he placed the animal back again into the box. And this time, the animal did not spend much time to open the trapdoor by manipulating the object inside the box. And so as and when he places the animal in the box, the animal continues to gain experience. And so he got to a time that the animal could spend less time in opening the trapdoor. And here we are saying that it belongs to the behaviorist school of thought. And so we have to understand this from the onset. And we have said that the behaviorist believes that learning occurs when there is a connection between a stimuli and a response. And so when the animal started operating on the object, there was a response. And the response was that the door eventually was opened for the animal to come out. And he is saying that as far as learning is concerned, the instrumental conditioning, which was propounded by Thorndike, maintains that there is trial and error learning. And so the fundamental type of learning involves the forming of associations, so between sensory experiences and neural impulses that manifest themselves behaviorally. He believed that learning often occurs by trial and error. And so in the classroom, especially in the arts as we are dealing with, if we belong to the instrumental conditioning school of thought, when we get to the classroom, we don't expect the students to make functional artifacts within a single day. But because of our understanding that learning itself is trial and error, and the more we try, the more we become better of ourselves, the teacher would have this at the background, and therefore he or she is likely to give the students time because they will try, they will make errors, and out of that, they will learn. If you compare this to the animal in the box, for the first time, we said that he spent much time by trying before it was eventually able to succeed. This school of thought believes that learning is like that, and therefore in the classroom, students have to get enough time in order for learning to occur. And then law of exercise and effect. And so in this school of thought, he maintains that there is the law of exercise, which has two parts. That is the law of use. That is a response to a stimuli strengthens their connection. And the law of disuse, when a response is not made to a stimulus, the connection strength is weakened. If you place the cat in the box and the cat knows that there is food outside, the child will be engaged to find out how to come out to pick that particular food. But when the child realizes, when the cat realizes that there is no food outside, and for that matter, even if I struggle to go out, there is nothing there. The connection between the cat and trying to manipulate the object would become what? Weak. This thing is also applicable, or this law of exercise and effect is also applicable in the classroom. When the child knows that there is a reward for an activity that he or she has to perform, the connection between the activity and the learner is strengthened. But when the learner realizes that even when we do this exercise, Sir doesn't give marks, Sir will only watch us and say, go and sit down, the connection between the learner and the exercise that he or she has to do will become weak. And so whenever we give exercises in the classroom, there has to be what? A target. Without target or without purpose, learners will not find any exercise that we give them meaningful. Then other principles like the law of readiness. And so when one is prepared to act, to do so is rewarding and not to do so is punishing. So when we go to the classroom as teachers, we have to get this at the back of our minds that learning will only occur when the learner is ready. And when the learner is ready, he finds learning to be rewarding. When the cat is ready, manipulating the object is very what? Rewarding for the cat. But when the cat is not ready, doing the work would become what? Punishment. And so in the classroom, learners should be ready. If students say, we want to go out and stretch for 5 minutes, it is the teacher's, responsibility to allow the learners to step out, because without that, the learners will not be ready to assimilate new information. Then we have associative shifting, and this refers to a situation in which responses made to a particular stimulus eventually are made to an entirely different stimulus if on repeated trials there are small changes in the nature of the stimulus that the learner would have to engage in. What does this mean? When you are teaching, you teach thinking that students have understood the lesson. And so in certain exam questions, you don't change the scenarios that you gave to the students entirely. There has to be similarities so that the students can associate with what you have taught them and the new situation that they find themselves from which they have to apply. And so when you go to the classroom and you teach the students how to mold a box, and in exams, you ask the students to build a house, the students cannot. And here, it means that the response and the stimuli has failed. And that is why we are maintaining that there has to be associative shifting, where students can transfer what they have learned in one situation in another situation. Then we have other principles, such as the principle of identical elements. And here we are saying that the principle of generalization, for that matter, extends directly to what we have discussed. The principle of identical elements affect transfer, or the extent that strengthening or weakening of one connection produces a similar change in another connection. And that is why we are maintaining that when we teach in the classroom, we should not give the students entirely new context from which they would have to respond, because learning would then become difficult. The cat was in the box. It was in the same box that the cat found itself. So when you move the cat from the box and you put the cat in a river, the cat cannot function, because the cat has learned to live in that box by manipulating that particular box. There are other theories, and here we can talk about, still under behaviorism, we can talk about classical conditioning. And the theory of classical conditioning was propounded by a Russian known as Ivan Pavlov. And here, what Pavlov did was, we have before conditioning, during conditioning, and after conditioning. So before conditioning, there was food, there was a bell. The food was the unconditioned stimulus, and the bell or the whistle was the conditioned stimulus. So anytime that the owner blew the whistle, a food was attached, or it means that the dog is about being fed. Anytime that the whistle blew, the dog knew that food was coming. Therefore, after the conditioning, the dog has become accustomed to the whistle. And for that matter, any time that there was a whistle, the bell knew, the dog knew that food was coming. So it gets to a point that in the classroom, the learners know that the moment says start this will be the result. Learning would occur until it gets to a point where the learners would realize that no, sir, these days, even when we sing or when I answer a question in class, sir does not give me money. This is a typical situation. We get to the classroom, learners are supposed to learn. By teaching, we ask learners questions. Anytime that they answer questions, we give them money. The learners will become accustomed to the money. And therefore, anytime that the teacher raises question, the students are ready to answer with the thinking that they will be given money. If we get to a point that they realize that the money is not forthcoming again, the students will not find it interesting answering questions in the classroom. And so here, the issue of motivation comes in. That when we step in the classroom, the way we motivate our learners would either make them participants in the classroom, or they will not participate in the classroom. Because when the learners know that even when I answer any question in class, sir, it's not going to give me anything, learning will not what? Okay. And so that is the Pavlovian theory. Then we have the operant condition. An operant condition has to do with rewards and punishment. And so it connects. In all this behaviorist theory, we are saying that there is that element of motivation in them, where there is a stimulus and there is a response. And so here, when you introduce a reward in the classroom, according to B.F. Skinner, there is likely to increase behavior. When we get to the classroom, we give exercise. The one who gets 10 over 10, you go out for break. The students are likely to increase their behaviors in the classroom. When the students know that if I don't answer any question in the classroom, it becomes punishment. The students would be forced to answer questions. Therefore, they would decrease that behavior of just sitting in their desks and waiting for the teachers to read everything to them. And so as far as B.F. Skinner is concerned, there is that element of a connection between a reward and punishment. And the way that the learner or the stimulus would inform or would influence the behavior in the classroom would actually bring about a reward, or it can bring about what? Punishment. So as a teacher in the classroom, we have to know that we can use punishment and we can use reward. And here, when we talk about punishment, it is not about just about corporal punishment. You can even, we talk about reward, and here, or reinforcement, you can reinforce a behavior negatively. And so if I have my children in the house and every Christmas I buy shirts for them, this time around, because they have failed to do something, instead of caning them, I won't cane them. I'll withdraw. This Christmas, I'll not buy anything for them. It is a punishment that is introduced to decrease a behavior in the classroom. There are other theories like we mentioned. We have the social cognitive theory, and the social cognitive theory comes from Albert Bandura. And according to this theory, this one is under the social cognitivist or cognitivism. And this theory maintains that children or learners learn in a social environment. Learning occurs when learners find themselves in a social environment. And so by observing others, people acquire knowledge, rules, skills, strategies, beliefs, and attitudes. This is particularly so in our classrooms. When after break, when the students find themselves out on the field playing, they end up learning. So as teachers, we shouldn't only think that learning occurs when the students are individually seated on their desks. No. All people who believe in this theory belong to that school of thought that maintains that students should be given group work and so on and so forth. Because the idea is that when knowledge is socially constructed, knowledge is not in one person's head. And for that matter, when you put students in groups, they are likely to learn more than when you make them work as individuals in the classroom. So according to Bandura, a person is influenced by the environment, and the environment influences a person's behavior. And so there is that triad connection between the person, the behavior, and the environment. And so the kind of environment that you create in your classroom would either result or impair learning. When we get to the classroom and we want to emphasize individualism, competition, it means that the students are not likely to learn. Even if they are going to learn, they only learn the textbook information. But you and I agree that as far as learning is concerned, it goes beyond the textbook information to the point where we are saying that other environment, other behaviors in the environment, cooperation, commitment, respect, obedience, and all that, the learners have to learn them. But how are they going to learn them? They can only learn them when they are exposed to the environment. Then we get to the third theory, which comes from the social constructivism. And basically, this school of thought believes that knowledge is constructed. And so here the element of social constructivism also comes in. Then we talk about proponents such as Jean Piaget, and we talk about proponents such as Len Leversky. And according to Leversky, for example, when the students come to the classroom, they operate at a stage where they are known as the zone of proximal development. Zone of proximal development basically has to do with what the learners can do and what they can do with the help of others. So when we find the learners in the classroom, there are certain things that they can do on their own. But according to this school of thought, learning will only occur when the teacher is able to put the students in group, or when the teacher is able to allow the students to learn by themselves. And this is why I mentioned that if you are teaching the students, for example, how to make a beat, you do not need to tell the students that exactly the exact thing that you need to do in order to come out with a beat, but rather just allow the students, as they are there, they are learning by themselves, by observation, by whatever. So socially, you can group the students, give them activities, then they can scaffold learning. And so here we talk about the element of scaffolding as an essential element. Then the more knowledgeable other. When you find yourself in the classroom, the students know that within their group or within the students in the classroom, there are some who are more intelligent than others. And for that matter, when you put them in those groups, they can learn by themselves through the social relationships that they have in the classrooms. And that is why teachers who belong to this school of thought will always group cooperative activities. So if it is about design, they will not ask individual students to undertake any design activity, but rather they will put the students in groups. And the idea is that as the students find themselves in the group, they will learn more than when the teacher hijacks the class and try to teach more. And so language is key when it comes to social constructivism or the constructivist school of thought. And the idea is that for effective learning to occur, learners would have to flow with the language that they understand. When you put the students in groups and they are working, they will choose the language that they are likely to understand. And this is particularly interesting in our jurisdiction where we try to use English as the basis of everything that we do. Then we have the other school of thought, that is the cognitivist constructivism. Whereas the first school, that is Leversky, is thinking about what happens to people when they are in social groups. The second school of thought has to do with what happens in the mind of the individual. And here, this school of thought believes that learning is an active process rather than a passive one. And therefore, learning should be whole, authentic, and real in order to be effective. When we get to the classroom, we should bear in mind that the learners would have to be engaged in an active process because that is when learning is occurring in the mind. When we get to the classroom and we don't engage the learners in practical activities for them to construct their own learning, learning will not occur. And so we have to understand that when we step in the classroom, in the minds of the learners, learning can occur. But this learning can only occur when we make the teaching and learning process an active one rather than a passive one, especially in the arts. You don't need to go there and sing notes. You don't need to go there and read your notes like you are reading a sermon in the church. But rather, when we get there, we should give the students opportunities for them to engage in practical activities. And as they are engaging in the practical activities, learning is occurring. So in brief, this is what we have been talking about since the beginning of the latter part of the discussion. We are saying that there are three schools of thought when it comes to the theories of learning. We have behaviorism, we have cognitivism, and we have constructivism. The behaviorist believes that what the learner does proper response to a given stimuli. So whether the learners will learn or not, it is because of a certain motivation that they have. The cognitivist believes that the students will process information. And so how the learner organizes this information depends on pre-existing schema or an internally built schema. Then the constructivist theory believes that how the learner interprets the new information and applies to their own reality. And so the learners would have to make meaning out of their own learning. The teacher does not need to inform the learners on what is correct and what is wrong. As the learners learn, they will evolve constantly. And so if you belong to the behaviorist school of thought, what type of learner would you be? Basic definitions and explanation of concepts, generalizations, and then recall of facts. Then if you belong to behaviorist, you are likely to be a reactive. You want to see the stimuli before you respond. But if you belong to the cognitivist and the constructivist school of thought, you are likely to be a proactive learner, because here the learner would have to construct his or her own learning in the classroom. Then the type of learning that occur in behaviorism is basic definitions and explanation of concepts, generalizations, and then recall of facts. In cognitivism, there is higher level reasoning, information processing, and the emphasis is on memory, organization, and so on. And then the constructivist type of learning is also high level problem solving and critical analysis, and there is real emphasis on world scenarios or practical problems as they occur in this world. Then, if you belong to the behaviorist, you are likely to do pre-test comprehension checks, facilitating learning through assessment that allow practice, repetition, and so on. And then the cognitivists will also use corrective feedback, learning strategies like analogy, metaphor, concept mapping, removing irrelevant information, because here it is about what happens in the mind. And then the constructivists would deal more or less with apprenticeships, clinics, collaborative learning, encouraging application of new knowledge in a variety of concepts and perspectives. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is the end of my presentation. I'm therefore open for comments, questions, and suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you for the juicy presentations. At this juncture, the floor is open for discussion. As I said, this is a presentation that he's facilitating, he's leading, and then honorable members present here, your questions, suggestions, comments, opinion will help to make this conversation lively and interesting. So at this juncture, if you have if any of the staff, just show by hand, let me call you and let's move on. Okay, so Jan has the hand raised. Jan, please unmute yourself and let's hear you.
Yes, I've unmuted it already. Sir Apple, thank you so much for your nice presentation today. And I've learned a lot more on the learning theories and teaching as well. Throughout the presentation, I noted 3 things which I would like to, I would like you to throw light on. And the first is in relation to teaching philosophy.
Okay.
Yes, you said many things that teachers do in the classroom do relate to their teaching philosophy. And when you pick the educational system or the curriculum there seems to be a national philosophies that guides what teachers should do in the classroom. So in this case, the teacher is having his or her own philosophy. And then we have a national philosophy guiding what should go on in the classroom. So how do the teacher blend his philosophy with the national one, which in this case should be a supreme one? And then I heard one terminology for the very first time today. It said a scheme of learning. when I went on internship, I got to know much about scheme of work, where a teacher, you list the various lessons you are going to teach in the entire term or period of time. So a scheme of work, and I would like to know more about a scheme of work and its essence in the classroom. Then my last question is on the learning theories. You made us aware of the behaviorist theory, the cognitivist, and the constructivist theory. And I was thinking through, and what came to my mind is that certain lessons or topics may require that a teacher go by the behaviorist theory, and then others may require the cognitive. Likewise, others may require the constructivist theory. So for a better understanding and proper benefits on the part of students, is it not appropriate for teachers to strike a balance or blend between the theories so that their students can benefit much? Because I know each of the theories have their lapses. So these are the three things I would like to know. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, with your kind permission, I would want to take them one after the other by starting first with the teaching philosophy vis-a-vis the national philosophy of education. Teachers teach best the way they are taught. In as much as we are saying that the environment that the teacher comes from has a great impact on his teaching philosophy or his teaching ideology, how the teacher is trained in the institution of teacher training also affects the philosophy that the teacher eventually comes to associate with. And so when we are teaching teachers, we have to expose them to all the teaching philosophies that they can align with. And the teacher would now have to strike a balance between the national philosophy and the teaching philosophy that we are espousing the learner to. And I'll give you a typical example that in the new curriculum, for example, teachers are expected to be facilitators. What that means is that they have to, knowledge is socially constructed, and for that matter, the teachers would have to just facilitate the teaching and learning process so that the learners can create their own knowledge. However, when you come to university, the way we are training you is different from what is happening out there. So when you come here, the idea is that we have to train you for that environment that you are going to to meet. Meanwhile, you come to my class and political science, for example, they are 911. And so if I want to do group work and I want to pair them even in 20 people per group, I'm likely to have more than necessary. And here, the teacher is required, however, to go there and implement a certain curriculum. That is why when teachers get to the field, they have to learn further. Because there are so many lapses in the way that we prepare our teachers. If you don't learn after you go out there, you will not be a fit. You will not be fit for the classroom purpose, because the philosophies that we are teaching you here, the kind of approaches we are using to teach you here, does not reflect what you are going to do in the classroom, in the Ghanaian classroom, let me emphasize. And so that disconnect is always a problem. And that shows why in the new curriculum, I was part of those who were training the people last week. And I told them that if you go and you want to teach, you can teach the whole curriculum in 1 week. If you don't want to facilitate and you want to teach, you will finish 1 week, which means that when you get there, your philosophy would have to change. If not, you will not fit the purpose for which you have been employed to do. So that is one thing. So striking the balance is very, very important. Then we come to the theories. You are asking whether we have to strike a balance between the theories. Yes, it is very important, but most of the time it depends on the level that you are dealing with. In the university, teaching here is different from teaching in the basic school. In the basic school or in the kindergarten, the learners would have to construct knowledge. You can't go there and ask them to recall facts. They do not even understand the fact that they are recalling. So you have to give them counters, you have to give them objects for them to manipulate the object and learn from them. So in as much as you want to strike a balance, it depends on the level that you are dealing with. You can combine the theories, but what level are you operating? If it is in the university, you can combine the constructivism, even the three, throughout the semester. There will be times that you engage them in group work. There are times that you take them to the classroom where you teach them the theories. There will be times that you give them mental activities that you want them to what? To undertake. The last one has to do with the scheme of learning. Yes, Ike, in the new curriculum, we don't call the scheme of work again. Now you call it scheme of what? Learning. We don't call lesson plan a lesson plan. We call it a learner plan. There are so many words that have changed that I think as teachers, we have to be exposed to them. Now, we don't have anything like a topic again. We don't have anything like a topic. No, we have content standards. We don't have anything like lesson objective. You can't go and say by the end of the lesson, the students should be able to mention. Those things are gone. Now we have performance indicators. And I think that at a good platform someday, we may learn about some of these things. So yes, your terminology still applies. Scheme of learning is very relevant, especially in this new curriculum, because in this new curriculum, unlike the previous one where the curriculum itself has divided the activities into terms. So term 1, this is what the teacher has to do. Term 2, this is what they have to do. Term 3. In this new one, you have a whole year for yourself. As a teacher, you have to decide which lesson do I have to teach in first semester, which one do I have to teach in second semester, which one do I have to teach in third semester, depending on the village school you find yourself, depending on the city school you find yourself, depending on the resource that you have at your disposal and the type of learners. So Ike, that is all that I can say regarding your question. Thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the response. Please, any other questions? Sami, is your test a question? We want to get it. You can raise your hand and whatever. Okay, let me read the question that Sami has posed. Is that post-independence, Nkrumah's government sought in the beginning to facilitate the emergence of a Ghanaian population that would be literate and employable in the new nation. And Ghana sought to build, a new nation Ghana sought to build. Our educational system and its products were to become, in Nkrumah's vision, a pioneering example of an educated and skilled population running an emerging healthy African industrial economy, pivoted on an ISI, an answer to Europe and America, and a fountain of our true emancipation. Now, this is just the background. Now, this is the question. Of all the theories you have fantastically explained, which one properly suits the Ghanaian situation and a better fit for our march forward as a country? That's a question from Samuel Donko, aka Nkrumahist.
Yeah, so thank you very much, my Nkrumahist brother. I think that all these theories are very essential in the classroom. It links very much with what Ike was asking. Do I have to strike a balance? Yes, you have to strike a balance. And I've already explained that it depends on what the idea you want to, you want the students to grasp, the focus of that very lesson, and even the type of learners that you have in your classroom. For example, if you find yourself in a classroom where the students lack motivation, then obviously you need to even belong to the behavioral school of thought first before you now come in with the cognitivism and the social constructivism. So these theories, they interrelate. We shouldn't think that, oh, I can just align with one. In the new curriculum, we are saying that we want to go with the constructivism. And so we want the learners to construct their own ideas, their own knowledge, and so on. But my point is that if we give them examinations and the examination demand for recall, then we are likely to push the student to revert back to behaviorism. So it depends on how we want to structure our educational system. But personally, I belong to the third school of thought, that is the constructivism. Just that the environment I find myself and the social milieu prevents me from becoming a social constructivist. Because 911 students in Anamwa Mensa, how can I group them? And if you give group exercise, you have to monitor that everybody has to participate. 911, just 3 hours, it is practically what? Impossible. So sometimes the context can also make you change. So for me, Ghana can go with all the three, because there'll be a time that you can't be an artist without knowing the theories behind your arts. Very, very important. So you need to connect all the three theories in order to become perfect as an educator. Thank you, Sami.
Yeah, you see, let me add to that person that was trying to put. You see, in Nkrumah's kind of education that he was preferring, or he wants Ghana to take, is a kind of education that puts the learner at the center of doing things, creating, not mere recall of knowledge, practicality, executing things as and how and when they are supposed to be constructed. So you are taking there and you construct the thing. It's not about book knowledge, book. And that is why it's asking. In fact, if you look at, what he quoted, ISI simply means import, substitution, industrialization. In other words, grow what you eat or create what you use, right? Create what you use. Or if you are going to eat cassava, grow cassava and eat it. If you will be using cups, make cups and use them. It's not about book. Okay, this one is about this one is about this, and then we are not in touch with the practicality. And that is what he's asking, that with all these theories, which one is going to help Ghana to veer into industrialization, to veer into processing of food, to veer into making things for our use? That is the question he was asking. Anyway, but in my view, hello, Sam, can you hear us, Kofi? Kofi, can you hear us, Stephen?
Yes, please, I'm here.
Oh, okay. But for me, it all has to do with the teacher, how the teacher negotiates it, how he engages the learners in that kind of activity, so that they'll be able to come out with their best to create. That's it. Personally, if my class is what about?
Please, can you take it again?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was talking about, the question that he posed. He was talking about a practical-based learning.
Yes.
Even history can be practicalized.
Yes.
History, it can be practicalized. But sometimes you are inundated with the numbers.
Yes.
As you just pointed out. So someone was asking how we can be able to move forward as a nation with these theories.
Yes, and so look, that is very, very important. It is very, very important to look at their educational implications and what teachers have to do. You see, as of now, or as we speak, there is an effort. We want to get there. Change is not as simple as it may be. How are we training our teachers here? If you be honest with me, Doc, how are we training our people here?
Yeah,
we say
you.
yes.
I think it depends on what they are learning in the faculty. So if you ask me how we are training our students here, yes, we may have a challenge with numbers, but when they come to the practical activity in art, they do. And most of the assessment is rated on what they do. Not, that is it. It's about what they do, as John will tell you.
All right, no, that is fantastic. That is from your point of view. But there is a broader picture, a national cancer that we need to cure. You train these people in art. Do you know that some of your former students are teaching mathematics? Are you aware of that?
Well, this is beyond this discussion. And for me, that is a misplaced priority, and it's based on the employers who pick them, right? So if somebody, even back in the school that I attended, the one who taught me English did special education, right? Yeah, so these are some of the issues, bread and butter issues we need to look at. But it is beyond this discussion. Let's look at purely, these theories and so that at a different forum, we can look at it in a broader issue.
Yes. So I think that the educational implications are clear. Teachers need resources to work with. The resources that they need to work with are not resources that have to be bought. Teachers can, on their own, design environmentally friendly, cheap materials for their classroom activities. We have to let our teachers understand that teaching is not restricted to the classroom. You go to schools, and when you talk about helping learners to construct their own knowledge, for example, if I want to teach about sanitation, I don't need to keep the students on their desks. If I'm talking about sanitation challenges, and at the end of the day, the students have not been able to come out with any strategy to deal with the environmental challenges that we are faced with, then I failed as a teacher. And so teachers need to understand that there are times they need to move their students from the desks from which the students have been confined to. And I've always maintained that even the way our desks are designed presupposes that the classroom is a platform for competition. One man, one desk. Everybody is looking up to the teacher. So
because
there is that race
because of social distancing.
In the minds of the learners, that is what is happening. But I'm looking at a bigger picture where we will have teachers who are more flexible to say that it is your classroom, the children are yours. You can use them for any legitimate activity that the curriculum preaches. Do not be restricted by examinations, because parents understand that they shouldn't expect their children to come up with 6 A's and 7 B's. That is not the focus. And so for us to really change from behaviorism to constructivism, it requires something which is greater than just myself and you. It starts from our teacher training, it starts with our educational policy, it starts with our teacher deployment in the classroom, it starts with even people that apply to become teachers in the country. Because now somebody comes to be trained as a teacher and he's here because probably that is the only way to get a job after school. This person is done, and you want the teacher to get to the classroom and help the learners to construct knowledge. That is not possible because the interest and the passion for the job is not there. And so it is a holistic thing that goes, as Dr. Oseni will say, goes beyond us on this platform. But the best approach for the 21st century is constructivism. And all nations are gearing towards constructivism. And that is why if you go to Malaysia and Singapore now, they are not even doing standard-based curriculum. They are doing project-based. We are now on standard what? Based. We have to get there gradually. But teachers have to take the battle, take the bull by the horn, and be ready for this expedition. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Samuel Achem, please. Your hand is up.
Yeah, Doc, thank you very much. I thank you all for the webinar and the presenter too. He has given us, he has popped knowledge into our mind, his presentation. Actually, I want to find out the levels of education, the pre-tertiary levels. If Mr. Kwachi can tell us which, regardless of everybody or individual's philosophy of teaching, which theories we can combine or use in teaching this stage of learners.
Come again.
I've already mentioned that purely constructivism. At that level, we don't need to, the knowledge should not be the most important thing in the classroom. It is about the processes involved in arriving at that particular knowledge. When they get to the university, their minds are already grown at that level where they can now learn the abstract element. At the pre-tertiary level, learning should not be abstract. The learners should be helped to construct their own knowledge. And that is why I'm mentioning that constructivism is key. If as a country we want to move forward, and we are still gearing towards behaviorism, cognitivism. So even myself, teachers teach myself. You go to the classroom and the teacher is saying that, say, my name is, then the child will respond, my name is. No. Remember we said that in constructivism, language is key. If we are to say this in Chi, the child knows, that is all. And so these are the arguments that I am making, that at that level, constructivism, when they get to the upper level, like the university, we can take them through all the cognitive exercises. We can ask them to do everything that they should do. And at that stage, they can do things in abstract. But when at the initial class 1, and you are teaching the child, my family, my daddy's name is, you are not the one to tell the child the daddy's name. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Please, any other comment, question, opinion, submission? Okay, I would like to pose this question. I think it's for all of us, including the presenter. We have been enlightened on teaching theories and some aspects of philosophy. May I know the difference between teaching philosophy and teaching theory? I mean, the difference between teaching theories and teaching philosophy. How different are they?
Yeah, so I would give it to them to start with, then we are all discussing. So
okay, so participants, this is to you. Please unmute your microphone. We are sharing ideas. You know, no one is right, no one is wrong. We are all sharing ideas. Over the past 2 months, we've been looking at teaching philosophy and other topics, theories. Yes, some people may call theories as philosophies, and some people may call philosophies as theories. So in this case, what do you think is a teaching? I mean, teaching philosophy is. What is it? What is teaching philosophy? And how different is teaching philosophy from theories?
Look, I would like to get the question clearer. Are you interested in knowing what teaching philosophies are and the differences that exist between theories of learning or teaching theories?
What makes something a philosophy in terms of teaching, and what makes something a theory in terms of teaching? That's the question that I want us to deliberate on.
Then, Doc, I think the second part of the question is actually not a part of the webinar today, because we discussed learning theories.
Okay.
Your question is coming from teaching theories, so you know, there's
teaching and learning theories. No, they are where there's teaching, there's learning. Where there's learning, there's teaching.
Yeah, Doc.
Yes.
Yeah, please. To my understanding, or my simple understanding, philosophy is a knowledge acquired for a period of time, which has now become part of how you teach. Experience you have acquired for a period of time, and that inform how you teach. But with the theory is a scholarly approach, propounded approach, which help to hinge your lessons or your teaching to be effective.
Okay. That is
They
his
help
take.
you to hinge on your teaching to be effective or to deliver your lessons very well.
Okay. That is his
Per
take.
the
That's
standard of the per the standard or the level of the children you teach.
okay. Any other, please? Sammy,
So,
unmute
Doc,
your microphone and talk. Sammy, unmute your microphone and speak. Sammy says, teaching philosophy, a self-reflective statement of a teacher's beliefs, values, and purposefulness about teaching. If you can unmute your microphone and give more explanation to this, that would be good. Thank you. Yes. So teaching philosophy, teaching theories. Any other contribution is something that we are discussing just to.
Doc,
Yes.
Doc, I think that what is our philosophy? It is basically our worldview. So connecting this to the classroom, a teacher's philosophy is basically the teacher's beliefs about, not just beliefs, everything that how teaching should be. That is your philosophy. What are theories? Theories are tested through research. And so if somebody believes that teaching has to be from the known to the unknown, and he goes to the field to test this, he would come out with what? A theory. So from your philosophy, I think that you can derive what? A theory after it has been what? Tested scientifically through research. Because as we said, we all have our philosophies about life. They are not tested, so we can't call them theories. But the moment we subject our philosophies to scientific scrutiny and we end up with results, we can conclude by saying that our philosophies have now become what? Theories. And so all these theories that we talked about, they are people's worldview about how learning should be. But the only thing that makes them theoretical is that they have been tested. We all have theories about learning. They are not tested. And so they remain philosophies. That is how I understand it.
So will you say constructivism is a philosophy or a theory?
It is a theory.
At what point in time does it become a philosophy?
It is a theory that has emanated from a philosophy. It is a theory that has emanated from a philosophy. So somebody philosophized that teaching should be about engaging the learners in a practical activity. The person did not limit the discourse to that point, but he went further to conduct research, gather data, and so on and so forth. And so we are saying that now it did not remain just as a philosophy, it has now become a theory because it has now been tested.
Okay, thank you so much for your response. Mr. Atali, your hand is up. Do you have something to tell us? Hello, Mr. Atali.
Yes, I was about to say that the situation that we are to determine what exactly you are going to teach and then which of the theories that you are going to apply. Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Atali, you are online, please.
I'm saying that the environment where you find yourself will determine which of the theory will be applied. So you can't have a blanket theory that this is what I'm going to use. But the situation which you find yourself will tell you what exactly you
Oh,
do.
okay. So what about the content? The content knowledge you are going to deliver, and the level of the children you are going to teach.
Yes, you know, as for the content is already there, and then the theory which the content that you are going to impart based on, depending the situation where you find yourself. Assuming that we are in a village where there's no electricity, and they wanted to do something concerning that, how will you do it? Because the electricity will not be there. So definitely you can't use electricity, but you must definitely find a way of imparting that or teaching that. So that's what I'm saying, that the situation where you find yourself will tell you what exactly you will do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Any other submission? Okay. Thank you so much. In the absence of further submission, once again, we thank you for joining this webinar. And God willing, this we will continue. We also want to extend our gratitude to our presenter, Honorable Stephen Apel, who agreed, to, facilitate this thing for us, despite his tight working schedule. But the exam officer job is not easy. But he found time to interact with us. We really appreciate it. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
So, and to you, my
Thank you.
fellow
Thank you, sir.
art educators, may God bless you all. Let's share this, and then next week, God willing, on Thursday, we're going to meet. Thank you, and bye for now.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
God bless you, sir. Dog.
God bless you too.